Welcome everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicola Pearson, an education consultant, and I also run Minds of Wonder. Now this is the first in a series, Talking Today's Challenges, where I'll be talking with a member of our Facebook group about a particular challenge that they're facing right now. There's quite a few of those challenges during this difficult time. And our first guest is Sue. She's a working mom and she also runs the Facebook group Our Tribe Travels, so you may know her or recognise her from there. It's a group that shares tips and experiences about families travelling around the world. So a big welcome to you, Sue.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. Now, I know we spoke last week briefly about a particular challenge you're finding at the moment about maintaining a homeschooling schedule. Would you like to just elaborate on that for me for the group, please, and people listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think lots of parents are struggling at the moment. Homeschooling or schooling from home wasn't something that we had anticipated doing this year. It's something that I'd never experienced before either. And my son is 9 years old and he's in year 5, and I'm trying to get a routine going with difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided early on that I would try and tackle the homeschooling in the morning. For me, it felt like that was a better way to approach it because essentially it was almost, I felt like I was getting it over and done with quite early in the day. And then I've also put in place I would say a rule where any gadget, which is Xbox or any tablets, can't be used for recreational purposes until sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I suppose it's like the carrot dangling. But my son's got a really short attention span. I don't know whether any other parents are struggling with this. I find that I actually have to sit next to him to actually get any tasks completed. And gee him along a little bit and give him that motivation, because I think in a classroom they have that respect for the teacher and not necessarily the same respect for their parents. But I'm just really struggling with this, so I didn't know what the best way of approaching this was, or if you had any suggestions to make my homeschooling life a little bit easier.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for sharing that. First of all, to say you certainly won't be on your own. I've had lots of parents say exactly the same thing. And I think a lot of parents are putting themselves actually under quite a lot of pressure at the moment to do this homeschooling. And although I think it's important to do some, okay, you don't need to do it all. I'd say most, if not all, teachers are not expecting parents to suddenly become these homeschooling warriors, where they're suddenly excellent at homeschooling. Okay, they're not expecting that. And of course, when our kids do go back to school, there'll be catch up, and the teachers will do that. So first of all, let me take that worry off you, okay? But of course, you do want to do some, because there are key areas. I would say, reading, maths, and English are the key areas. They're the ones that you want to keep on going with. And remember too, Sue, that you're teaching him all the time anyway. Okay. So you mentioned about you fitting it all in the morning because kind of getting it out of the way.
Yeah, I'm done with.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But if you're running up against difficulties on that in terms of his response, what I would say is, I know a lot of parents are telling me that they're learning a lot about how their kids learn, which is brilliant. I think, we're all learning a lot more about how our kids learn because we're getting a lot of first-hand experience. So maybe look at that again and see whether morning is good for him. Does he function best in the morning? Or maybe would he be better off doing an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half before dinner, for example? Mm-hmm. And you mention the short attention span, which is normal. He's young, and I think we all need to remember our kids are still only at primary school, all right?
Yeah.
So, and you're not trying to replicate the school day either, okay? So short attention span, you might want to be looking at mixing it up. So there might be, for example, if he's a visual learner, you might want to be bringing in some videos in that. You might want to, for example, for my daughter, when we focus on the times tables, she has a go at doing hit the button, which I really recommend actually, for times tables. So you're doing it in short, manageable chunks for him.
What would you say is a short, manageable chunk? How many minutes would you recommend, or does it vary per child?
I think it totally varies per child, and it can vary day to day as well. So you may find that one day he's really quite focused for 40 minutes on doing maths, for example. But another day it might be 10 minutes.
Okay.
And you know what? That's okay. Because I think it's absolutely key that we're flexible. I think having a routine is actually quite important, because it's giving our kids a kind of sense of normalcy at a time when the world is uncertain. So then knowing what they're doing, I think really, really helps. But within that, be flexible. And also, sorry, just to ask you, was he involved in creating your routine, or did you do it and then?
No, that was my doing. I just thought what I didn't want to do is find that I got a lot of resistance later on in the day. Sort of, oh, do I have to do it? Whereas I felt like if I sort of got what I would consider the homeschooling or the less interesting to him things out of the way first, then I could almost entice him to do it, because I could say, well, if you do it, then at 2 o'clock you can have a go on your Xbox. So I guess maybe I've been too rigid in my thinking. I don't know, maybe there are ways of breaking it up a little bit throughout the day, or adding some game.
What I'd suggest is creating a schedule with him and doing it together and discussing it with him. When would you like to do maths? Would you like to do your maths first thing? Would that be good? Would you like to do your exercise first thing? Would you like to, so for example, we do our reading straight after lunch, because I just thought that's a nice time to do your reading. You just had lunch and to sit down, especially with nice weather, sit in the garden, and we have 20 minutes, reading. And if he's involved in that process, then he's probably more likely to stick to it, because he feels he's had some say and some control in that. So that's something you might want to try. Could just sit down with him and say, okay, it's not been going great for whatever reason. Why don't we start again? And that's exactly what we did. We had a schedule, didn't work. After a week, my daughter said, this is really stressing me out. So threw that out the window, and we sat down together and we said, what can we come up with? Because the last thing you want isn't feeling stressed.
I think one of my concerns as well is that different parents are doing a different amount of time for schooling, homeschooling. So some parents aren't working, some parents are. And I guess I feel there's that added pressure that I've heard that some parents are doing 9 till 3:30 and replicating a normal school day. That just isn't something I can do. So do you think, what is the recommended amount of time that you should focus on the schooling? That's quite important, that I feel confident about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, to say that with parents, there's going to be a huge spectrum. There's going to be parents at one end, like you say, and in fact, somebody else told me a similar story the other day, that are doing the 6 hours, some that are hardly doing any at all. So don't worry. I know parents do, and it's easy for me to say, but please don't worry what other people are doing, because you're doing what's best for you and your family. Okay, so if you can, just put that right out of your mind. Okay. Secondly, he's 9, so the recommended amount would be about 3 hours a day. Because if you remember at school, they're doing 6 hours, but they're not really doing 6 hours learning, are they? Because obviously they have their breaks, they have their lunch, they take time to put their coats on, coats off, they line up for assembly. If you were to actually, how much time they are actually learning, it's obviously nowhere near 6 hours, and nor should it be. But also remember, I think this is really important, that he's getting one-to-one with you. So they're learning more, it's more intense, isn't it? Than, what he learns with you in 40 minutes or half an hour is an awful lot more than he'd learn that in the classroom, because the teacher's got up to 30 kids to look after. So remember that too, that it's far more, intense, but he's learning a lot more. We all do. If we all had somebody sitting right next to us, we're going to learn a lot more probably than we learn in the class, a lot quicker. Okay.
That's true.
So you're really looking, at no more than 3 hours. And I'd also say, Sue, be flexible with that as well. And if there's a day where you or him are just not up for it, then don't do it. Today, we're not doing it. And it will not matter. In fact, it will benefit him, because the last thing you want, and last thing anybody wants, is for that now, or when our kids are at school, is to be turned off learning. Yeah? For it not to become this, got to do maths now. That's, you want to avoid that at all costs. To me, I'd rather do half an hour a day, and she absolutely loves learning, then right, you've got to do your 3 hours and sit down. Which also reminds me that it doesn't have to be sitting down. You said he's got a short attention span. So get him up and get him moving. I mean, I was thinking this morning, actually, you could even play some kind of, if you're up for it, some kind of tag game in the garden with the times tables.
Oh, yeah.
There's
all something.
Yeah, just to practice them. It doesn't, if he's not good, and a lot of kids, again, they're only young, a lot of kids aren't, they're sitting down, especially at home, because it's new for them, right? Then, do it other ways. Sometimes when I'm making dinner, my daughter will come in and I will, give her times tables as I'm cooking. All right. So also don't think we've got to sit down for 3 hours and do that, especially with a short attention span, and especially if he's not taking to it too well. Do it in other ways.
That's true. Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
Good.
Because it does. You just feel as the lockdown goes on longer and longer, you just worry that what happens if my child gets behind? Is it detrimental to his education? You have all those worries at the back of your head.
You do, yeah.
And actually hearing from the expert that actually it's okay. Makes you feel better.
And if it helps you, what I'm doing is focusing on the key areas. So my daughter will be going into year 5. So what are the key things she will need to know for that? And that's it. The other learning will come. And as I said, teachers are not expecting you to be these brilliant homeschoolers and all the kids trot in September, and they all, kids are not going to be on the same level when they go back in September. So, and that will be accounted for. So
that's true.
All you can do is your best. That's all you can do.
And actually, you mentioned your daughter does Joe Wicks in the morning, which I have tried, but he wasn't very enthusiastic. And I have just got a trampoline, which I'm quite pleased with. So is there a way of actually having, putting exercise into your routine that actually helps with the learning? I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, I think getting kids active definitely helps with their learning. And I mean, again, it's up to you what fits best with you, but my daughter does Joe Wicks, and it's quite nice because it's 9:00 every day. As he does it live. So it's a great start to the day. That's what she starts with. Well, that's what sometimes we start with when I'm roped in to do it. And that's great because that gets her into the mood, and then it kind of G's her all up. And then after that, she's ready to sit down and do some lessons with me and that's another thing. We do the BBC Bite Size, for example. So mix it up with that as well. So it's not always you having to sit down right next to him and, be going through it with him. Get him to do it, maybe leave him for 10 minutes or so, and then you can come back and mix it up.
Oh, so good to know. Thank you so much. I feel a weight.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Oh, no, that's great. And it's not easy, but honestly, and everybody's in the same boat, and I also would stress that your kid not being stressed and being happy is key, and if you had to cut it down to an hour and a half a day, but he's thriving and he's happy and he's not stressed, then do that.
Okay.
Thank
you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I could carry on talking to you all day, but I better wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Sue, for coming on and being our first guest in this series. That was very brave of you. And thanks as well for being so open with your challenges. Because I think that really helps with the parents. I think when they hear somebody else is going through the same thing, they think, oh, it's not just me then. So I hope it's helped. I hope you feel a bit more reassured. And I think I'm positive that the tips we've spoken about today will hopefully make it less stressful and less of a challenge. But don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need more help. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it because it's helped me a lot.
Brilliant. That's great. And just to say to everybody else, if you have any questions on this, then please do leave them in the comments, because I will be doing a Facebook Live tomorrow morning in the group at 11 a.m. GMT. And I will get back to all of the questions that you leave in the comments. So please remember to leave yours. You've got about 24 hours. All right. Thank you once again, Sue.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. You take care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.